13 Roads. Here is a tale I have not yet forgotten. Listen. Tonight it is Maren Voss who locked a schoolhouse on the hollow road and threw the key into the nearest well and heard, from inside, 60 years of coats whisper her name back. She did not go in that day. She did not go in for 3 weeks. When she finally returned and opened the door with a borrowed key, the coats were still there, every one of them, and they were sorted by size, smallest near the door, largest at the back, as though something had been expecting visitors in a particular order. She had not sorted them. No one had sorted them. The schoolhouse had been locked, and the thing that stopped Maren cold, stopped her so completely she left a half print in the mud outside and did not finish the step, was that the hooks along the wall were not the original hooks. Someone, or something, had added 43 more. I have called a name in that room. I will tell you what answered, but first I want to tell you about Maren Voss, because the coats did not begin with her. They began with a man named Aldrich Sen, who came to the Hollow Road in the autumn of 1907 with a schoolteacher's certificate, 31 kopecks, and a cough he would carry to his grave. He built the schoolhouse himself, 4 walls, a stove, 2 windows facing east, because he had read somewhere that morning light is better for young eyes. He nailed 12 hooks beside the door. He wrote the names of the 12 children he expected on a piece of paper and folded it into the stove damper for safekeeping, the way a man marks something he intends to return to. He waited 3 weeks for the children to arrive. None did. The village the schoolhouse was meant to serve had been abandoned 6 months prior. A sickness, a relocation, competing stories, and no one had told Aldrich Sen. He had walked the hollow road with a teaching certificate and a cough and arrived at a building that had no purpose. He stayed one night on the floor because the hollow road does not release travelers easily after dark. If you know the road, you know what I mean, and if you do not, that is a different night's telling. In the morning he left, and he left his coat on one of the 12 hooks, because the walk back was warmer than the walk in, or because he was already sick and past caring, or because something asked him to, wordlessly, the way that road asks for things. That is the first coat. Between 1907 and 1931, 11 more coats appeared on the 12 hooks. No 2 in the same season, no 2 from the same direction. A wool coat with a name tag sewn inside the collar, Peter, left by a tinker who stopped to eat lunch in the doorway. A girl's coat, yellow, with 2 buttons missing, left by a woman who said she had been carrying it for 20 years, waiting for the right place to put it down. A coat so small it fit a child of perhaps 4 years, left by no one who could be identified, found one morning by a shepherd who used the schoolhouse as a windbreak. He had not heard anyone pass in the night. The hollow road does not always announce its traffic. By 1931, all 12 hooks were full. Maren Voss's grandmother documented this. She was not a superstitious woman. She ran the nearest postal station with the meticulous composure of someone who believed that what could be written down could be managed. She wrote down the coats, their colors, their conditions, the names on the tags where there were tags. 7 of the 12 had name tags. She cross-referenced the names against every enrollment record, every birth register, every land deed in the district. Not one of the names matched a child who had ever lived within 40 kilometers. She wrote that down too, underlined it twice, and did not return. Her daughter inherited the postal station. Her daughter added a note to the file. In 1947, someone had added a hook. Coats, 13. Maren Voss inherited the file, the postal station, and a grandmother's handwriting that underlined things twice when she was frightened. Maren was 34 when she first unlocked the schoolhouse. She was the district records keeper by then, the person responsible for exactly the sort of anomaly a building full of unclaimed coats represented. She had the key because no one else wanted it. She had the file because no one had thrown it away. She counted the hooks before she counted the coats. 55 hooks, 55 coats. The hooks were hand-forged. Not all the same hand. She could see the differences in the ironwork, the way some curled right and some curled left, the way some had been hammered smooth and some left with the texture of the forge still in them. Someone had been adding hooks for 60 years, one at a time, patiently, the way you add hooks when you know more coats are coming. She stood in the doorway for a long time looking at this. The stove was cold. The two east-facing windows let in morning light the color of old paper. The coats hung still. No draft. The building was tight. Aldrich Sen had built it to hold heat. And they were absolutely, completely motionless. She took out the file. She read her grandmother's list of 7 names. She looked at the coats. She said the first name aloud. She said it the way you say something when you are alone and testing whether the air is different than you thought. Peter. The third coat from the left moved, not swaying, not the motion of air disturbed, the motion of something that has heard its name and turned toward the sound. A single, precise shift of the shoulder, the way a child half turns when called across a yard. The coat settled. The room was still again. The smell of the place was chalk dust and cold iron and something beneath both, something that reminded Maren, she wrote this down, she underlined it once, of wet wool drying near a fire, the smell of children just come in from the cold. She said the second name. Her coat near the back answered. She said the third, a small yellow coat, 2 buttons missing, lifted at the hem as though someone had grabbed it from below to straighten it before a lesson. She had not touched it. She was still in the doorway. She had not moved. She did not say the fourth name. She locked the door, walked to the nearest well, and threw the key in. This is the action that defines Maren Voss to everyone who knows the story. And it is the action most people misread. They think it was fear. It was not only fear. She told this to the woman who eventually found her, a researcher who spent 6 months tracking down everyone who had ever held the key to the Hollow Road schoolhouse. And what Maren said was this. It was not that the coats were frightening. It was that they were right. The names were right. She did not know those children's names. She had never known those children. But when the coat answered to Peter, she knew. The way you know a word is spelled correctly without checking, the way you know a voice is your mother's before you see her face. She knew that the coat's name was Peter, that it had always been Peter, that she had not been assigning a name to a coat, but recognizing one. And she was not ready to know what that meant. The researcher's name was Odile Strauch. She was not from the district. She had read a fragment of Maren's grandmother's file in a regional archive and followed the thread for half a decade. She was the one who counted the full 55 and cross-referenced them with records across 4 countries, 3 languages, 2 collapsed administrative districts. She was thorough in the way only people with a personal reason to be thorough are thorough. Her notes do not explain the personal reason. I have read her notes. I have guesses. What Odile found, across those 4 countries and 3 languages, was this. There were children. Not children who had been enrolled at the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse had never enrolled anyone. But children who had, at some point in the 60 years between 1907 and 1967, walked the Hollow Road. Children who had been with families crossing it, or alone on it, or recorded near it in ways that suggested passage. 41 of the 55 coats could be cross-referenced, not to deaths, not to disappearances, nothing so dramatic, but to children who had passed along that stretch of road and then simply continued their lives elsewhere. Grew up, moved. In several cases, could be contacted. Odile contacted 11 of them. 9 did not remember leaving a coat. 2 said they had never owned the color or style Odile described. All 11 said the same thing, without being prompted, in different languages, with different words. They remembered being warm on the Hollow Road. warmer than they should have been. One man, 70 years old by the time Odile reached him, a retired surveyor named Benedict, said that he had been 12 years old and lost on the road in a December storm, and he remembered pulling his coat tighter and feeling as though there was a second coat already around him. He remembered being guided. He did not remember by what. He said it smelled like chalk dust. He still had the coat he'd been wearing that day. It was not on the wall in the schoolhouse. His coat was his coat, accounted for, in a cedar chest with mothballs and a photograph of his mother. The coat on the wall with his name inside, Benedict, sewn in green thread. That coat belonged to whatever had kept him warm on the road. Odile drove to the schoolhouse with a borrowed key. She had Maren's file, her own notes, 11 testimonies. She had, she would later say, absolutely no idea what she was walking into, which she considered the appropriate epistemic state for someone standing outside a door in winter with a key that had come out of a well. She counted hooks first, 71. The last count had been 55 in 1967. 16 more years, 16 more hooks, roughly one per year, steady as a heartbeat. I want to tell you what Odile wrote about what she saw when she opened the door, because she was the best writer among all the people who left records of this place, and because I think she understood something that the others were too frightened or too cautious to name. She wrote, "The coats hang the way children stand when they are waiting, not restless, not impatient, but with that specific quality of readiness that children have before they know to hide it. They hang as though they know what comes next and are not afraid of it. The room is not sad. The room is the opposite of sad. I do not have a word for what the room is, and I have been looking for it since I walked out." She called a name. She said she chose at random, which I do not believe. I think she chose the name her notes had convinced her most, the one she had followed the longest, the one she privately needed to confirm. A boy's name. She called it toward the back of the room, toward a coat the dark grey-green of pine needles, small, sized for a child of perhaps 8. The coat turned to face her, not swaying, facing, the way a child turns to face someone who has used the full name, the careful name, the name that means, pay attention, something real is happening. She stood there for a long time. She wrote that she said thank you, which she could not explain rationally, and which she did not try to explain, and which she stood by. She locked the door behind her. She left the key on a nail outside. She could not bring herself to throw it away. And she mailed her complete notes to Maren Voss, who was by then 61 years old and living 3 districts south. Maren wrote back one sentence. "I know. The hollow road does not take children." I want to be precise about this, because the shape of the story pulls toward that reading, and the reading is wrong, and getting it wrong matters. The coats are not trophies. They are not evidence of loss. The children who can be traced, Benedict the surveyor, the others Odile found, those children lived their full lives, grew old, remembered warmth on a road where they should have been cold. The coats are what warmth looks like when warmth is finished with you and wants to wait for the next one. Something on the hollow road has been keeping coats for 60 years, 70, 80 now, more hooks than Odile counted, more names than Maren's grandmother underlined. It has been doing this the way a schoolhouse does anything, patiently, without drama, ready for the next child to come through the door. It knows the names before the children arrive. It has always known the names. This is the part that will not leave me alone, that wakes me at the edge of sleep and holds me there. It knows the names of children who have not walked that road yet. I know this because I called a name in that room. Years ago, a winter that I do not speak about on other roads, and the coat that answered was sized for a child I had not yet met. A child whose name I should not have known to say. I do not know how I chose it. I do not know what I believed I was doing. The coat turned to face me, and it smelled like chalk dust and wet wool, and something I could only think of as readiness. The way a room smells when the fire is laid but not yet lit. That child is grown now. She has never told me about the hollow road. She has never told me about being warm somewhere she should not have been warm. Maybe she does not remember. Maybe she was too young. Maybe she will tell me someday, when I am old enough to hear it without my hands shaking. The schoolhouse is still there. The key is still on the nail outside as far as I know. Maren is dead. Odile is dead. And the keys have a way of staying close to that door. If you go, count the hooks before you count the coats. And if the number frightens you, remember, the coats are not a record of what was lost. They are a record of what was kept. But do not call a name unless you are ready to know it was always the right name. There is a road I walk that has no coats, no warmth, nothing that waits. It has only a woman who walks it in the opposite direction from every traveler she meets, and she has been walking it in that direction for longer than the road has had a name. I have walked toward her. I have never reached her. One day I will understand why she walks that way, and that day I will tell you what the pale road costs the people who go toward what is coming rather than away from it. Until then, keep your name to yourself on roads you do not know, not because something will take it, because something might already be holding it for you, waiting on a hook, in a room that smells of chalk dust and the cold that precedes all warmth.